Hello, everybody. Welcome to the American Cinematheque at the Los Feliz 3. Thank you all so much for being here for Network. This screening is co-hosted and co-presented by the Greg Proops Film Club podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts as part of our ongoing collaboration here. He will be up, Mr. Greg Proops himself will be up here doing a taping of said podcast in just a moment. I'm just here to tell you about some of the stuff we got coming up. Firstly, we have a limited engagement of the new film Urchin. That plays after this at 10 if you want to stick around for that. We have some random stuff like All the President's Men as part of our Robert Redford retrospective is playing tomorrow. Ingmar Bergman's Persona plays on 35mm this weekend. Jurassic Park plays on 35mm at the end of the month. We have a Michael B. Jordan retrospective currently underway. Creed plays next tomorrow. That's on 35mm. We're also showing Just Mercy and Black Panther. Lots of really cool stuff going on here as well, of course, as the Arrow and the Egyptian. So check our calendar at americancinematheque.com for the full lineup of everything that's going on. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone in here who is a Cinematheque member, because none of this would be happening without you guys. We are a member-supported nonprofit, and all of these screenings are only happening because of you guys. So thanks so much as always. The very last thing that I am going to say is just please, once the film starts, keep your phones away. We have a very strict no phone policy in here. And just no talking, all that courteous stuff. Be good to everyone around you and enjoy the film. But now, the man you're here to see, please help me welcome to the stage your host, Mr. Greg Proops.
Hooray, hurrah! Once again, the Greg Proops Film Club convenes here at Hollywood's most enchanting cinematic confabulation, the Los Feliz 3, here for the American Cinematheque showing of 1976 Sidney Lumet classic Network. That's where your chair. Hooray! Thank you, filmers and filmettes, for coming out tonight and joining us. If you've been to the film club before, I can't thank you enough for coming out. My wife, Jennifer, is the curator of the Greg Proops Film Club, and Jesus Christ. I like to break some glass at the top of every show, just for luck. She picks all the pictures we show here, and she chose this one tonight. And I think you'll see why, for the very salient reasons that this is not just cogent, but trenchant and almost painfully prescient movie from 1976. I talk a lot about, first I like to close the world here, about going to movies in the 70s, because I'm that age. I don't even want to tell you how old I am, but it's old. And my prime movie, I was 10 to 20 in the 70s. And so I went to the pictures every week, all the time, sometimes more than once a week. And I'm from a very, very small white suburb south of San Francisco called San Carlos, California, the whitest place on earth, home of the Plain Yogurt Festival. And take the fruit out, the powerful taste is burning our tongues. And we were so white that our Catholic school was called St. Charles. San Carlos means St. Charles, you guys. But we were so white that the town fathers were like, San Carlos sounds a little Mexican, don't you think? Maybe we should call it St. Charles so people feel comfortable. This is a comedy podcast as well. I'd like to retroactively inform you of that as the jokes plow on this evening. If I want this bullshit, I can go next door to Midnight Sun or whatever and walk up and down the aisle if I want to see serious-ass people who live in a horrible flat in this neighborhood being miserable and wretched. I can go to the bookstore next door. So I'm hoping for a little bit more from you, my little popinjays, as the evening wears on, because this is a 2.5-hour podcast followed by a 4.5-hour movie. That's the spirit. So, going to movies in the 70s, what was it like, Greg? Well, the candy was dirt cheap. It was like a quarter and shit like that, and 50 cents, quarter for a Coke, whatnot. The price of movies went up in my hometown. We went to see Dr. Dolittle with Rex Harrison, and the Laurel Theater went from charging 50 cents to 75 cents, which cut into the dollar that my mother gave me to go to the movies. Yeah, you could go to the movies for $1 for the whole day, watch 2 movies, and then you had to keep a dime so you could call your mother to come get you and whatnot at the end of the picture. So I saw pretty much every movie of the 70s. And this movie's from 1976. Now, I was in high school then, and that was the bi-curious centennial year that we had. We were really celebrating 200 years of American democracy. And of course, when I mean democracy for those of us who lived in white suburbs. For the rest of America, there wasn't as much democracy as there could have been, kind of like now. We were very happy to, actually, I was wildly, not particularly. I mean, all I wanted to do was move to San Francisco and get the fuck out of my little town. As Lou Reed said in one of his brilliant songs called Small Town, the best part of living in a small town is getting the fuck out. You can romanticize small towns all you like, but they're a bummer. And thank you. I'm sure there's people here from that part of the country, what do they call it? The Midwest? You know, Iowa and Dakota and Indianapolis, those places. People come from, you all right? People come from when people pop up like that, it fucking frightens me, I'll be honest. Oh, you're the photographer. Hey, baby. Jesus. And then this is a very filmic one. Like I'm some kind of academic scholar and not just some stoner dropout. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting use of chiaroscuro in the cinematography. So we would go to the pictures, and Faye Dunaway, I have to say, was someone that I had an enormous crush on. She wasn't the first person that I ever had a crush on in the movies. My parents took me to see Mary Poppins at the drive-in when I was 5 years old. Thank you. No, not the remake, but the original, with Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, who, by the way, are both still alive, so hello. And the original Mary Poppins, I was in, I believe we called them footsie pajamas, in the back seat of the station wagon. And I was like, oh my God, Julie Andrews is so beautiful. And she looks after children, and she's really cool, and she flies. So what wasn't to like? Then as I got a little older, of course, we all went through the Marion on Gilligan's Island phase when I was young, and Yeoman Janice from Star Trek. But when you start going to the pictures, Faye Dunaway, I think, in my opinion, and Glenda Jackson are the two most outstanding white actresses of the 70s. They're just astonishing. And this is really... Faye Dunaway made a load of great movies. This is a scintillating role for her. And she did get the Academy Award for it. And she was very, very happy to get the Academy Award for it. And you may know the famous photograph of her. The day after she got the Oscar, Terry O'Neill, who I believe, I don't know if she was married to at the time, but later she married him, the photographer, took a picture of her at her mansion in LA. She's sitting next to the pool in a satin robe with very sexy, strappy sandals on. And there's trades all over the table, right? You see Variety and the Hollywood Reporter and whatnot, and telegrams, because it's the 70s, everywhere. And her Oscar sitting on the middle of the table next to the pool. And she's going like this. Just sexy as hell. And I worship her for that. Faye Dunaway not only brought humor and unbelievable vibrating sexuality to the screen, but she was extraordinarily glamorous as well, on top of being very funny. Now, I don't know, let's just go through a couple of her movies. Little Big Man, where she has a supporting role. The Thomas Crown Affair, I don't know if you've ever seen that one, where she plays a sort of highfalutin insurance adjuster. Yeah, but it's very sexy. What? Yeah, and her wardrobes in all of these movies, by the way, are to die for. She was stick thin, and before they made Bonnie and Clyde, they were talking about different actresses to play Bonnie in the movie, Bonnie Parker. And Bonnie and Clyde was her first big smash movie. And Warren Beatty produced it, and Arthur Penn directed it. And I'm not kidding, before she made the movie of Bonnie and Clyde, they said, could you lose 30 pounds? No, you'll see Faye Dunaway in this movie, and the idea of her losing 30 pounds is like, she would basically, you could turn sideways and not see her. So evidently she quit eating. Now, for all the women who are here that are actresses, you're all like, yeah, go on. All the men here are like, what? Thank you. She carried on from that movie because that movie made her a giant star. Bonnie and Clyde was an enormous hit, and so was the Thomas Crown Affair. And then her 70s movies are just not to be fucked with at all. The Three Musketeers, The Four Musketeers, 3 Days of the Condor, Network, I'm forgetting one, and Chinatown, which I think she said might have been the best movie she was ever in. Chinatown's an extraordinary movie, and she's unbelievable in that movie. And I still, I think, love her a little bit better in this picture. I saw her a few years ago at the Turner Classic Movie Festival, and she was just absolutely sensational. And they interviewed her, and she talked about this movie. And, she's a high-strung individual, what can I tell you? Yeah. People say that she's a difficult actress and shit. Have you ever had a meeting with a male producer in your life? Have you ever experienced the stultifying pain of listening to someone so fucking stupid talk out of their ass at you and talk down to you for fucking an hour about something you know everything about? You're experiencing it now. But imagine if I was a producer and you were pitching me something, because the men of show business get off with a complete skate at all times. If Faye Dunaway was high-strung and she was difficult, hooray for Faye fucking Dunaway. I hope she made every man's life a fucking misery that she worked with. Because the end result of everything she did is extraordinary. Polanski, when they were making Chinatown, there was a stray hair, and it was showing, in the backlit. It was backlit. And Polanski pulled her hair out on the set, and she fucking stomped off, right? And she said, I was just tired of the abuse and the humiliation, because Polanski was, let me put it this way, autocratic, and was bossy, right? And then, of course, years later, they're both like, oh, it was great fun, and we really enjoyed making the movie together. I think at the time they detested each other beyond all measure. Now, Sidney Lumet, who made this movie, is an actor's director. And everyone who worked for Sidney Lumet got nominated for an Oscar. And 3 people got Oscars for this movie for acting. Faye Dunaway, Peter Finch, who's also superb in this movie as Howard Beale, and Beatrice, who plays William Holden's wife in this movie. Paddy Chayefsky, who wrote the picture, also got an Oscar. So it won Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Screenplay, and was not Best Picture, because the Academy is awesome. The movie that was the Best Picture in 1976 was Rocky. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen Rocky. It's fun. It's fun. It's when you could still tolerate the sight of Sylvester Stallone. So it's a halcyon bygone era. He was a young underdog when he made the movie. He'd only been in some porn films up till that point, and Bananas, and maybe Lords of Flatbush, or a couple of other pictures, and Talia Shire and whatnot. There's a lot of fantastic overacting in the movie Rocky. The legendary Carl Weathers, who, God rest his soul, is in Rocky. 1976 was a superb year for motion pictures. Taxi Driver, All the President's Men, Harlan County, USA, the documentary, Network. This is off the top of my head. I'm sure I have a list here. And Bad News Bears. So let me put it this way when we talk about actresses and what they have to go through. Jodie Foster was in 2 movies in 1976 that were both big hits. Taxi Driver, where she played a child prostitute, and The Bad News Bears, where she was on a Little League team with Walter Matthau as the drunk coach. Yeah. Oh, shit, did I say Jodie Foster? I meant Tatum O'Neal, you're right. It was Tatum O'Neal, who, of course, won an Oscar previous to Bad News Bears for being in Paper Moon. Thank you for correcting me on that. I'd hate this to go out and have everyone that's listening in podcast land go, he doesn't know the difference between Jodie Foster and Tatum O'Neal. I do, actually. One was in Little Foxes. No fair guessing. Also, some super schlocktastic movies that really hold up. The Omen, where Gregory Peck has to fight the Antichrist, and Logan's Run, where, one person sort of clapped. Also, Car Wash, which is an enduring classic. And one of Jennifer's favorites, Dario Argento's Deep Red, or Profundo Rosso, as it's also known. And another Polanski movie, The Tenant, which is ookier than you could possibly imagine. And then Mel Brooks made Silent Movie, which isn't a particularly great Mel Brooks movie. And Hitchcock's last movie, Family Plot, came out that year. Faye Dunaway passed on Family Plot and took Network. So what I'm getting at is this. A Star is Born also came out that year. The one with Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson, which Jennifer and I tried to watch recently for fun. Sometimes you're like, okay, let's, get high and sort of camp watch something and hope that it's campy. Well, I remember going to see A Star is Born when it came out and not particularly liking it then, but thinking, well, it's been 50 years, let's give it a whirl. And no, it's just as shitty as it was in 1976. Not one thing about it is inauthentic. It's dishonest, it's horrible. Chris Christopherson's gorgeous in it and unbelievably shit-faced on coke and booze. And his character in the movie he as an actor is. And then Barbra Streisand is supposed to play a rock star whose name is Esther in the movie A Star is Born. And I love Barbra Streisand. It's one of my failings as a human. And I adore Barbra Streisand. And I read her entire biography, which is longer than Proust's box set. It's like a Thomas Pynchon novel. It's 900 pages long. And at one point, her dog passes away. And this is recently, like the last 10, 15 years, which in Barbra Streisand time is, because we live in BS time. She won an Oscar when she was 25. And so Star is Born is like 10 years after that, or 6 or 7 years after that. She went to see Chris Christopherson at the Troubadour. I'm pointing to Ori at you. The Troubadour's that way from here. And it's still there. And she said, oh my God, he was so gorgeous, he came on stage barefoot. Well, in the book, she talks about sleeping with a lot of different stars that she worked with, but she does not say Chris Christopherson because she was married to John Peters at the time, but come on. So we're watching the movie, and in the movie there's a lot of coke snorting because it's a really awesome 70s movie with aloha shirts and coke snorting. So Gary Busey is forever going, go, and people do bumps and shit, right? Now I know I forgot sometimes that I'm from the 70s and everyone else is not, and that you guys are judgmental about open drug use in movies. For instance, when I saw the movie Casino, which has Joe Pesci stabbing someone to death with a ballpoint pen, no one in the movie theater reacted to that scene. And then later in the movie, Sharon Stone did a rail in front of her daughter in the movie and goes, don't do this, honey. And I remember the whole audience went, oh! And I'm like, Joe Pesci stabbed someone with a ballpoint pen for an hour. But you were upset because someone snorted pretend coke in a pretend movie in front of someone who was not really their daughter. So I understand how audiences work. In any case, there's a lot of coke snorting in A Star is Born. But Barbra Streisand is in an entirely different movie that has nothing to do with rock. She's in like Funny Girl with Jeans. So anytime anyone does drugs in A Star is Born, Barbra Streisand's character is like, oh my God, they're getting high. You know, you're like, it's just. So this picture, Sidney Lumet was a genius director. And I'm going to say something that's going to fuck a lot of you off, and I don't care because let's have the controversy. Sidney Lumet is the director that Martin Scorsese is always given credit for being. There, I fucking said it, okay? Martin Scorsese made a couple of great movies. He really did, including Taxi Driver from this year. But Martin Scorsese also made a lot of movies with Leonardo DiCaprio in them that are unbelievable drag. And thank you, they fucking are, okay? And it's not his fault, it's the state of things. And he made what's the one with Robert De Niro where they're gangsters and their faces are CGI'd out? Oh, fuck, are you fucking kidding me? The Irishman? I would have walked out at a drive-in if I was at that movie. The Irishman was absolutely fucking hideous beyond all measure. Literally hideous. And so, but Sidney Lumet made Dog Day Afternoon, the Anderson tapes, hello, that's a weakness of mine, Network, The Verdict, and Serpico, right? Hello, those movies are unbelievably good and as good as any 70s movies that Coppola or Scorsese ever thought of making. Here's the deal with Sidney Lumet. He was a television director. He had been a child actor in Yiddish theater. Paddy Chayefsky, who wrote this picture, was also in television in the early days, the golden age, as they call it, right? In the 50s and early 60s, they did live plays on television and live teleplays. And Sidney Lumet and Paddy Chayefsky had worked together a lot. And Paddy Chayefsky won an Oscar for a picture he wrote called Marty in the 50s, which is the story of a lonely guy who goes out dancing every night trying to find a girl, and then he meets one, and of course he can't accept it because he has issues. And Paddy Chayefsky won 3 Oscars for screenwriting, and he's the only screenwriter to win 3 solo Oscars for screenwriting. You'll see why tonight when you see this movie. What are you getting at with Sidney Lumet? Sidney Lumet would have all of the actors come, and they would rehearse the movie for 2 weeks before they shot the movie. And he did that with almost every picture he made. I don't know if you've ever seen Running on Empty, or the movie about radicals from the 70s on the run. And they're liberals and they're moral and their heart's in the right place. And oh my God, they were uplifting society and trying to stick it to the man. And they killed a guy and they never answered for it. And it ruins their family's life. So these are the kind of complex issues that Sidney Lumet gets into. But having rehearsed everyone together gives the performances in this movie an unbelievable bravura. They're so incandescent that I think you'll be wildly taken in. Beatrice, who won the Academy Award for playing William Holden's wife in this movie, is on screen for maybe 7-8 minutes. Ned Beatty's on screen for less. Sorry? 5 minutes, 22 seconds. Thank you. Wow. There's a stickler over there. 5 minutes and 22 seconds. Did I exaggerate it to 7? I'm not fucking with you guys tonight. You are all over this thing. Ned Beatty, I'm not certain how long he's on for. I'm hoping for a total before the end of this podcast. But I would wager it's around 5 minutes. And they're stunning, and you'll never forget them. Sidney Lumet shot Peter Finch with 2 cameras so that he wouldn't have to reload when he does Peter Finch's giant monologues in this movie. Now, Peter Finch was Australian, and the studio freaked out because they didn't think he'd be able to do an American accent. So he studied, and he learned his American accent, right? Now, he'd been around forever at that point. And then, as he campaigned for the Oscar, he must have done 200 interviews, television, print, press, foreign press. He did 1 million interviews for this movie. And right before the Oscars, he had a heart attack and he died. And then they gave him the Oscar right after. And it was an extraordinary moment. Because he was the first person, Heath Ledger's the other, that actually passed away before he got an Oscar. But when you see Peter Finch's performance in this, you will never, ever forget it. Now, Paddy Chayefsky was on the set for the movie and was making sure everyone said every single word as it was written. And by the way, the most famous phrase in the movie is not what Paddy Chayefsky wrote. Peter Finch added an extra word into it, and you'll get there when we get there. And the scene with Beatrice and William Holden in the movie, which will come up, Paddy Chayefsky was sitting there as well. And Sidney Lumet said, "Paddy, I've been divorced 4 times. I'll handle this fucking scene." Everything that's going on today has been anticipated by this movie. At the time, the movie was considered satire. And a bunch of critics, including Pauline Kael, who was a very famous critic of the time, thought it was shouty and that the movie was like being yelled at by crazy people. Aaron Sorkin said, there's never been a movie that's anticipated as much as what's really happened as this movie. And I'm not going to spoil it by telling you all of the elements in this movie. I'm going to let the thing play out in front of you. But by the time that's over, you'll have laughed, you'll have cried, you'll have felt every awful emotion you can feel. And I think that's the purpose of art. Now, Paddy Chayefsky said, don't approach things as an artist. Approach writing as work. And then at the end of it, you can say that you've done good work. And I think you'll find that this movie is a glittering jewel and I wouldn't say it's a Hollywood movie, because Sidney Lumet didn't really make Hollywood movies. Almost every single picture he made was in New York. And it's kind of, I think what made his movies have so much integrity, that he didn't work out of this town and that he had as little interference as possible from the studios. So I give you tonight the unbelievable Faye Dunaway, the magnificent William Holden, the fabulous Peter Finch, and Beatrice in a role of 5 minutes and 22 seconds. And the movie that was not the highest grossing movie of 1976, but next to All the President's Men, the one that's the most resonant with today, I give you Sidney Lumet's Network.